Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 1st of October 2021. Alright everyone, first day of October, Uptober as they're calling it on Twitter over the last few hours, because the prices of ETH, Bitcoin, a bunch of other assets has gone nuts over the past, I guess, like 24 hours. ETH is currently at time of recording at 3270, started at 3,000 about, I guess you could say 12 hours ago now. So yeah, it's been a day for crypto prices for sure, but it's also been a day for news as well. So I'm going to get right into that. But just a quick reminder that there's going to be an AMA in the Discord channel tomorrow at the normal time. Definitely go check that out. It's in the announcements and calendar channel that you'll find on the Discord server there. And, you know, if you want to ask your question, be sure to do so in the AMA series channel on Discord. But you can also ask it live if you're going to attend the AMA. And, of course, it'll be recorded and uploaded to YouTube. And also this weekend, there'll be a data pump uploaded to YouTube as well. The first one in 4 months. I said that I was going to do it. I will do it. There's a lot of people requesting it. A lot of data to go through as well. So I'm pretty excited for that. But on to the news from the last 24 hours. So I think one thing I wanted to start with was this tweet from Robert Leshner, who's the founder of Compound here. I spoke about how Compound had that exploit yesterday with the comp token where people could claim way more comp tokens than they should be able to, and then they can't actually put a fix in for a week because there's a time lock and all that sort of stuff. So Robert decided to put out this tweet today, and it's not a great tweet, let's put it that way. It seems like he put it out without thinking first, but I want to kind of unpack this whole thing. So the tweet reads, "If you received a large incorrect amount of comp from the Compound protocol error, please return it to the Compound time lock contract at this address, and you can keep 10% as a white hat. Otherwise, it's being reported as income to the IRS, and most of you are doxxed." Then he put a follow-up tweet out, I think it was like a couple of hours after this tweet, where he said, "I'm trying to do anything I can to help the community get some of its comp back, and this was a boneheaded tweet approach. That's on me. Luckily, the community is much bigger and smarter than just me. I appreciate your ridicule and support." So obviously this is polarizing for a number of reasons. The biggest reason is the fact that Robert said that he's going, or not him, or like someone, maybe not him directly, but like someone he knows or people in his circle would report those addresses to the IRS, and he's saying, you know, most of you are doxxed, which means he knows the identity of these people, or at least there's a trail there from either from a centralized exchange or somewhere else. Now, of course, saying something like this goes against the very ethos of DeFi, right? Like the very ethos of DeFi is to not have government, nation state, regulatory intervention in anything at the end of the day. And Robert saying this is basically, but by saying this, he's threatening. He's using the threat of nation state power to force people to return the comp to this time lock address here. Obviously, a really, really crappy approach, and he realized this a couple of hours later. So I don't want to like crucify him for this, because I mean, for those of you who've been around for a while, you know how much Robert has done for DeFi. He kickstarted DeFi Summer by launching the Compound liquidity mining program. He's done a lot of stuff in the background. He funds a lot of different teams, helps a lot of them out. He's been around for quite a while. So, you know, he's a great guy. And when I saw this tweet, I was like, wow, is this really Robert's account? Like, this is actually weird coming from him, considering he's been such a great advocate for DeFi. And it just feels like he put this out without thinking. And we've all done this before. We've all said things before that we regretted immediately. And unfortunately, when you put stuff out on Twitter, it's there forever. Even if he deleted this immediately after putting it out, someone would have screenshotted it. So that's the unfortunate kind of thing when it comes to Twitter and I guess like social media in general. Now, if you scroll through the comments, there's a bunch of polarization going on. There's so many different, people making their kind of like own comments about this. I think most people basically said to him that this is just a silly thing to do. That's why he gave that follow-up tweet there. I'm not going to go through all the replies. You can check them out yourself if you haven't yet. But yeah, I mean, this isn't the way to go about it. To me, and actually, this also brought up the kind of like question around, what's the actual law when it comes to these things? Is the code law, or is kind of like the social contract law, the social layer law? And we all know that the social layer of these things is humans at the end of the day. So there was obviously that bug, and people got comp tokens and they sold it off, or they have comp that they shouldn't have, and they can either choose to give back the funds or not, right? Now, we saw this play out, I guess, like a few months ago with Alchemix, where they basically said to people, hey, they didn't kind of like force people to give them the ETH back that they drained, but they said, hey, if you give the ETH back, you'll get like an NFT and you'll get like some perks and whatever, sent to your address, and they kind of like offered, I guess, a bit of a carrot there for people to kind of come and do this. And 55% of the ETH ended up being returned, which is a much better outcome than zero being returned. And as I said, they didn't use kind of like any threats or anything like that. They played it really well, I believe. Whereas Robert here, this is not a great approach, of course, and I'm glad he realized this, and I think that he probably feels the worst out of anyone that this happened, to be honest, because Compound is his baby at the end of the day, and he probably feels really bad that people have lost money with the comp token bug here. So I can totally understand it from his perspective, but also just generally, I think that it's actually pretty encouraging that people hit back against Robert on this, like really, really aggressively as well, because as I said, I don't think we should be appealing to nation-state institutions such as whatever, the IRS, the SEC, any kind of nation-state institution and kind of like threatening using them to kind of like get people to do what we want them to do. Even if people taking those comp tokens was quote unquote the wrong thing to do, and I put quote unquote there because they just did what the contract allowed them to do. Like, I'm sorry, but we just got to build better systems. We build more resilient systems. There's always going to be bugs, but at the end of the day, you build better, more resilient systems over time, and you can kind of like lessen the severity of those bugs, and hopefully get to a point where critical bugs are a rare occurrence. And I think we're getting there over time, especially with the quote unquote DeFi blue chips and stuff like that. But still, I don't know, personally, and you guys know how I am, I just do not think that we should be looking to these nation states, looking to these kind of institutions for help or for like, or using them as kind of like a threat against people, because we're trying to disrupt them. We can't just say, hey, well, we want your help. We need your help with this because this happened, blah, blah, blah. But then on the other hand, say, oh, well, actually, our protocol is actually trying to disrupt you, because Compound disrupts banks because it offers obviously it offers what is it, a money market service? That's what service. That's the term I was looking for. And it obviously has better rates for people. They have their Compound Treasury product and things like that. So they're obviously trying to disrupt banks here. But so they can't just go to these financial institutions or go to something like the IRS that protect these financial institutions, or at least are tightly coupled with them, and basically use them as a kind of like, I guess, force against these people. So that's kind of like my general thoughts on this whole thing. But as I said, Robert is a great person. He is not someone that I expected to say this, but again, I think that this just shows that he's under an immense amount of stress and pressure when it comes to this incident, and why wouldn't he be at the end of the day? I mean, as I said, like, he's not responsible for Compound as it exists today. That's obviously in the hands of the comp token governance community, but he still is the founder. It still is his baby, and he probably still feels responsible for what's happened. So he's just trying what he can to kind of like fix the situation. But obviously, what he said was wrong, and I'm glad that he kept it up and like let people comment, let people kind of like talk about it. But this definitely does go against the very ethos of DeFi and what we're trying to build here. So I don't encourage this at all. I don't want to see any, people kind of like saying this. No, like, not even like founders of apps, just anyone. Like, let's not appeal to the state. Let's not appeal to any of these centralized institutions. Let's keep them at bay. Let's keep them like as far removed as possible. We don't want them to be meddling with our stuff and basically setting the lay of the land, the law of the land. The law of the land is what we make it at the end of the day. It's not code. I don't believe code is law to an extent, because, for example, if 50% of the total ETH supply was, this is an extreme example, but say 50% of the total ETH supply was kind of like due to some exploit was put into one central wallet, or it got sent to the burn address because some person was just like, oh well, I want to watch the world burn, so I'm going to send 50% of all ETH to the burn address. I'm telling you right now, that would be rolled back. The community would come together and come to consensus and be like, well, this is obviously disastrous. 50% of all ETH going to the burn address, and, depending where that ETH came from, it probably came from DeFi apps, probably came from exchanges, and that's hurting a lot of people. Everyone would be in favor of rolling back the chain or at least doing a regular state transition like you did with the DAO hack. Like the community did with the DAO hack, where you reverse that that kind of like that incident. And the same would happen for Bitcoin. Like, don't just think this is an Ethereum thing. This is definitely a Bitcoin thing too. There is absolutely no way the community would be okay with something like that happening. So at the end of the day, it is all kind of like a social contract. But in saying that, we should still use a social contract as a last line of defense. It should not be something that we rely on. It should not be like, oh, well, if something bad happens with our app, we can just get a bailout. Or, that shouldn't be the line of thinking that we take. And I don't think it is currently, but we should be vigilant and we should not let the narrative take hold that, oh yeah, do whatever you want. If you lose funds, whatever, it's fine. We'll just roll back the chain, or we'll just kind of like do an irregular state change and all will be well and good. But yeah, that's kind of like my opinion on the whole thing from Robert here. I'm going to leave it at that for now because there's a bunch of other stuff to get through. So I think this is the biggest news of the last 24 hours, besides the visa news that I went over yesterday. But Immutable has announced that they have teamed up with TikTok, which is, I think, the biggest app in the world still. It definitely has a lot of users, hundreds of millions of daily active users, I believe. But they've teamed up with TikTok to build NFTs on their Immutable X platform. They're kind of like layer 2 platform on Ethereum. This is huge news. I mean, absolutely huge. Look at the celebrities that they have on board here. They have Bella Poarch, I think that's how you spell her surname. She's a massive kind of like TikTok person. Lil Nas X, definitely huge kind of like music star there. Gary Vaynerchuk, Grimes. I mean, just going through the list here. I mean, it's huge, right? Like, it's huge because it's funny because when you think about like these traditional Web 2 apps, I've been getting people saying to me, oh, well, all these apps are going to go to the more scalable, centralized chains because they don't give a crap about anything. But they're not. Like, I'm telling you right now, the reason why these apps pick different kind of solutions is due to the BD efforts of these solutions. So, for example, Polygon has done a really great job here with their BD efforts on the POS chain, where they basically, BD stands for business development, where they basically went out, they approached all these things, they onboarded them, all these kind of like DeFi apps and things like that. Even outside of that, they recently did an NFT drop with Dolce & Gabbana, but they basically went and approached all these kind of like companies and said, hey, here are the benefits of our tech. Here's what we can do. Here's what we can set you up with. And that's exactly what Immutable did here. And Eli actually has a tweet about this. It only took 2 weeks from TikTok reached out to Starkware on September 16th, and then they immediately put them in contact with Immutable, who worked day and night to get it done over 2 weeks to get this kind of like NFT stuff done, which is, I mean, an amazing turnaround. Like, that's crazy. And I think the funny thing is that I was going on about business development efforts. This is on Immutable for their great business development effort here, where they basically took this opportunity, ran with it, got everything set up, and got the kind of like official press release out in 2 weeks. Absolutely incredible. Now, you're going to see much more of this stuff coming along, where there's all these platforms are going to be fighting for these massive user bases from the Web 2 world to migrate them across. Obviously, Ethereum has a lot of them right now. Visa building on it, TikTok, Reddit. There's a couple other ones I'm going to go through in the refuel in a sec, but it's all business development at the end of the day. Like, a lot of these companies, they don't really have the capacity or the knowledge to, I guess, go through every single solution and basically look at which ones kind of like work, which ones don't, which ones are actually decentralized, which ones aren't. They're relying on the companies to come to them. And I mean, TikTok was pretty proactive by reaching out to Starkware. But I think I saw another tweet from Eli or from Uri, one of the founders of Starkware here, that said that they had a common investor, Sequoia, who's a big Web2 investor. They've invested in Starkware and TikTok. So what I think would have happened was TikTok probably went to Sequoia and said, hey, we want to do NFTs. And then Sequoia was like, hey, well, why don't you do it on Starkware with Immutable X? And that's how that connection was made. So that's kind of like, I guess, a bit of luck there. But what happened with the Reddit case is that Arbitrum actually participated in the Reddit scaling challenge and won the scaling challenge and basically impressed Reddit with all of their kind of like tech and their kind of like efforts on onboarding them and getting them to work with their platform and stuff like that. So from that point of view, it can work both ways. But I mean, this is, just absolutely massive. Expect to see much more of this going forward. This is definitely not the final thing we're going to see here. And, it's funny because there are other platforms landing kind of like big Web 2 apps as well. And I think that a lot of these kind of like Web 2 apps, they don't really care too much about decentralization because they're centralized to begin with. What they do care about is using something that works. So that's why I'm really excited that Immutable has something that works today, and it has Immutable X, and that works today. It's getting like network effects built up around it. It's getting kind of like a community built up around it, and it's built on Ethereum, and it uses Ethereum. And I know Immutable X is technically a Validium, which is technically not a layer 2 because they store data off chain. I'm not going to get into that whole debate, but Validium still store their proofs on Ethereum. It's still all Ethereum. They're only using a Validium because of the fact that Ethereum doesn't have the data availability capacity for them to scale like they want to right now. We have to wait for data sharding for that and things like that. But still, I mean, it's still in the Ethereum family. It's still part of the Ethereum network. So yeah, I don't know. There's semantic debates, and some people will say they're not semantic. Some people will say it's really important to kind of like use the precise language here. I get it, and I've tried my hardest to use the precise language in the past. But as we keep going on, and as we keep getting adoption, and as kind of like more of these solutions come out, it's going to be very confusing for most users to discern what's actually a layer 2, what's a Validium, what's a Volition, what's a this, what's a that, like, what's a sidechain, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to keep, calling them what they are on the refuel, of course, and I'm going to keep educating people, but don't expect everyone to follow this. Like, most people are just going to repeat what they're told at the end of the day, and there's going to be disagreements about what actually is an L2 and what isn't. So yeah, I mean, just be prepared for kind of like that kind of rhetoric going forward as well. All right, second piece of big news was Rune Christensen here announced that, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but Société Générale, hopefully I said that right. I think it's a French kind of like, it's the third largest bank in France, just made a collateral onboarding application to Maker for 20 million USD, backed by Euro bonds proposed by their blockchain subsidiary. So this is a long post here. I'm not going to go through it on the refuel. You can give it a read for yourself. But from my understanding, it seems that they want to onboard Euro bonds as collateral as part of Maker in order to borrow $20 million worth of USD, or at least put in $20 million worth of these euro kind of bonds here. You can see the kind of like data, the main characteristics of the OFH tokens are as follows, and then you can see all the kind of like characteristics here. I mean, this is very long. I'm not going to go through it and go through it on the refuel, but you can go give it a read. But I mean, I want to talk about the broader implications of this. This is the very traditional finance system, being an actual centralized bank, onboarding to Maker, which is a DeFi app on Ethereum. This I think. Okay, so I know I said the Visa news is absolutely massive yesterday. I know I said the TikTok news is massive, but I would argue that this is probably just as big, if not bigger, than both of those things. I think Visa building their own layer 2 kind of like payments network is cool. And I saw some people kind of like pinging the head of crypto at Visa saying, hey, you should build a roll-up instead. So maybe we're going to get a Visa roll-up, which is just even cooler. But then also like the third largest bank in France, not a small bank, not a little community bank, the third largest bank in France wants to do a collateral onboarding application for Maker, and not for a small amount either, and using Euro bonds. It's just, I don't know, like this stuff is just happening so much faster than I thought it would, and it's just become so insane to keep up with the industry right now. Like I this morning I saw the TikTok news and I was like, holy shit, that's huge. And then like a couple of hours later I saw the news from Rune here, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, how did I miss that? Sorry for swearing, but like, how did I miss that, right? Like, it just feels like there's so much happening all the time that even the big news gets drowned out by other bigger news, and it kind of like becomes hard for even me to keep up with it, which, I didn't think it would happen this fast. Definitely not. But it only makes sense. We're in the exponential kind of like Ethereum adoption phase. We're in the super cycle of adoption, as I've been talking about a lot over the last, I guess, like I've been talking about this on the refuel for quite a while now. Over a year. I just think it's really, really cool to see more of these traditional institutions getting involved. Now, of course, we want to disrupt these banks, but I think the funny thing is, when it comes to discussions like this, disrupting the banks doesn't mean putting them out of business. Disrupting the banks means forcing them to adopt our better infrastructure. That's what it's always meant to me. And not just banks, but financial institutions in general. They're not going to go out of business if they build on crypto. They're going to actually improve their business, and they're going to use our kind of like crypto rails to make the financial system fairer and more transparent, and make it actually makes regulators' jobs easier as well. So from that perspective, when we say we want to disrupt the traditional financial system, we don't want to necessarily destroy what's already there. We just want to force the system to be better. We want to make it better for everyone, and that's exactly what's happening. I mean, it's not just this bank. It's not just Visa. It's a lot of enterprises looking into this sort of stuff. A lot of them doing that stuff in their own way. Obviously, EY built their Nightfall roll-up, and now with Polygon. MasterCard's looking into stuff. JP Morgan built their own fork of Ethereum for a while called Quorum. They're doing a bunch of stuff there. There's so much happening on the enterprise front that I know it may seem boring to an extent because enterprises move a lot slower and these kind of traditional institutions move a lot slower than we're used to within the crypto ecosystem, but it's still coming, and it's coming much faster than I think people give them credit for. It's not going to take 5 years. It's probably going to take 1 to 2 before we see a lot of this stuff. And, you know, I think it's still going to take, probably a decade before we get to a point where a crypto is kind of like ubiquitous, like it's actually part of everyone's life in at least the first world country, and then probably another decade after that for the rest of the world, maybe. I mean, yes, adoption happens fast, but it also happens slow depending on what kind of adoption you're looking at. So, yeah, from that point of view, I know this is a meme, but we're still early, right? Like I say it all the time on the Refuel, I'm going to keep saying it. Still very, very early. Speaking of Visa, I didn't mention this yesterday, but Cuy Sheffield, the head of crypto at Visa, put out shared a link to Visa's sample smart contract that is on the Ropsten Ethereum testnet here. So if you're a developer and want to go check out their universal payment channels smart contract, you can. It's on Etherscan. You can go check it out here, check it out how it all works and everything like that. It's all open source, which is amazing. So yeah, definitely go give that a look if you're a developer. I can't read the contract and tell you guys what it's doing because obviously I'm not a developer, but for those of you who are, I just wanted to point that out for you. So Scott Lewis put out an amazing tweet today, and I wrote today's newsletter about this tweet, but basically he said, Ethereum is the fight against authoritarians. Technology has made it possible for very small groups of humans to dominate very large groups of humans. Ethereum is easy to join but hard to dominate. Humans need authoritarianism and incompatible systems running the global economy. The part of this tweet that I want to focus on is where he said, Ethereum is easy to join but hard to dominate. I had never seen it put so eloquently before in my life. Ethereum is easy to join because literally anyone can use it. Anyone can develop on it. Anyone can work in it. Anyone could do anything they want in it. There is no barrier to entry, really, at the end of the day. If you wanted to argue if there's a barrier to entry within using Ethereum, it'd be the gas fees. And that's slowly going away as we scale, of course. But if you want to dominate the network, good luck. Like, how are you going to dominate Ethereum, right? You can't, becoming a core developer is extremely hard, not just on the technical side, but also on the social side. And core developers, while they may hold the most influence within the protocol, they don't have unilateral control over it at all. They can't force people to run malicious software or malicious clients. They can't force people to do anything, really. I mean, they can give their opinions, which are held in high regard because they're core developers. They're the closest to the metal sort of thing, but still, they don't have much power there. Centralized exchanges. Well, I mean, ETH is listed on hundreds, if not thousands of centralized exchanges or centralized places to buy ETH at this point. So if one kind of like shuts it down, depending on how big they are, it's fine. I mean, if Coinbase for some reason delisted ETH, oh well, like cool, okay, yes, it would hurt short to medium term, but they're not dominating Ethereum. There's plenty of other alternative solutions to buy ETH on. And then you think about like infrastructure providers. While they can't actually do anything to the protocol itself, Infura, Alchemy, the Graph, whatever, they provide really good services and services that are obviously needed to keep kind of like the ecosystem going. But if they went offline, it would only disrupt kind of like the user flow. It wouldn't disrupt the network itself. Ethereum would keep chugging along. Miners, well, no, mining pools doesn't equal individual miners. If a pool decides to do something dodgy, the miners will just kind of like switch pools. And there's a lot of other game theory that goes into that as well, as I've spoken about on the Refuel, I think a few months ago when we were talking about reorgs and stuff like that. Stakers, no, definitely not. There's slashing and disincentives. There's social coordination there too. So, I mean, and there's no one app on Ethereum that has kind of like total dominance over the network. I would actually argue that even if the top DeFi app was completely hacked and drained, the network wouldn't roll back for it. I know I was saying before that if like something like 50% of the ETH was kind of burnt, then it would, and it probably would, right? Because everyone, it would probably affect everyone on the network. But Maker losing all of its ETH, for example, the network would not roll back for that at all. We wouldn't change. The social consensus wouldn't be there for that. It would just be kind of like, it would hurt, but I mean, no one kind of like dominates the network. There's no one that could say, well, we need to roll back the chain. And definitely not, I didn't even mention Vitalik because he's so far removed from the protocol. I mean, he does a lot of core research and stuff, but he's so far removed from the kind of like Ethereum network now, which is obviously very positive. But yeah, so just thinking through that statement is awesome. Like, and I use kind of like this comparison in the newsletter today where I said that nation states are easy to join, but also hard to dominate for the individual, but easy to dominate for the nation state itself, for the government as part of that nation state. So, for example, if you're in the US, or I mean, not just the US, but like if you're part of any major nation state, their central power has only grown over time. That government's power has only grown over time, and it's completely centralized, right? I mean, some people will argue that depending on where you live, there's a decentralization among power, there's checks and balances, all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, there is still like massive centralized points of failure and massive centralization of power within these institutions and within these individuals in some cases as well. And, I mean, take it to the logical extreme. You have North Korea, a pure dictatorship, having one person control the entire country there. It's like 100,000% centralized, right? And nation states always want to keep centralizing. They don't want to decentralize. It is not part of their DNA to decentralize. Whereas Ethereum's DNA is decentralization. It doesn't want to centralize. It doesn't attract people who want to centralize power. It can't. Like, as I said, like Ethereum is at a point now where there's no kind of like central party that can dominate the network. I can't think of anyone that can exert central control over the network and get away with it, or even like exert control over the network and have any kind of effect over it. And don't get me wrong, there are kind of like big players that kind of like have more sway than others, but still, the Ethereum community is so diverse. There's so many stakeholders. It's such a big network now. There's so many eyeballs on it. I don't know. I just feel like it'd be near impossible, not just hard, but near impossible to dominate it from any one party there. But yeah, I mean, I wrote a bit more about this in the newsletter today if you want to go check that out. But I'm going to move on from that because I've only got 5 minutes left and I still got a bunch to get through here. So Cryptotesters has announced that they have launched an academy with tutorials on the most basic things a beginner needs to know to start their DeFi journey. Things like what is DeFi, how to use MetaMask, how to trade on Uniswap, how to lend, borrow on Augur, how to buy a DeFi index, etc., etc. So you can go visit cryptotesters.com/academy here if you're a total noob and you want to kind of like get started. I know maybe most people watching the refill have done pretty much all of this before and aren't total noobs, but I figured I'd give this a shout out as well because maybe you know someone that's a total noob and you want to share this with them. I think it's a really great little guide here, so definitely do so if you know someone who's just getting started. So Polygon announced that they're joining hands with the Augur project with a $1 million liquidity mining program. The liquidity mining program will bootstrap user adoption of Augur Turbo. And this is pretty cool because I hadn't heard of Augur for a little while. I knew that they were still building in the background and I knew that they were going to use Polygon, but I didn't know the kind of status of it. So it's great to see here that basically, or the Augur Turbo prediction market it has a liquidity mining program attached to it now, and they're still kind of like building this. I mean, Augur is one of the OG Ethereum projects. I think it was created in like 2016, I believe, one of the first ICOs, that's for sure. So cool to see them, expanding to Polygon, a more scalable kind of solution for them here. And they're doing a liquidity mining program as well to bootstrap growth, which is going to be interesting to see how that plays out because I don't think there's been a prediction market platform that's done a liquidity mining program just yet, so it's definitely a first. I think you can earn Augur and Matic rewards here, so definitely go check this out if you're interested in that. HopProtocol got added to CryptoFeesInfo today, so you can now see how much kind of like revenue liquidity providers are generating on each kind of chain here, split up between Arbitrum, Polygon, Optimism, and XDAI. So you can see in total, Hop doing about $11,000 of revenue right now. That's only going to grow over time, of course, as bridges get more usage here, and as kind of like Hop adds more pairs and adds more chains. So definitely going to expect to see that go higher. Element Finance announced that they've surpassed the $120 million TVL mark. Now, I've spoken about Element a lot on the Refuel, not lately, but I think earlier on, and I basically just described how they were kind of like a fixed and variable yield market that was sorely needed within the DeFi space. It's definitely targeted more towards sophisticated investors, specifically institutions, but it's great to see them growing here and great to see institutional DeFi growing as well. New partnership between Polygon and IndexCoop is coming. The Polygon Diversified Index, aka the PDI, will capture broad exposure to the most influential Polygon network projects. So I guess projects like QuickSwap, obviously the Matic token, Aave, Sushi on there, Sand, Mana, Must, Ghost, DFIN. I mean, there's a bunch of different tokens in here. You can see the breakdown here on the little table here. But just another product coming to the IndexCoop from Polygon. And this is cool. I mean, these are two teams that I obviously work closely with. Polygon as an advisor, IndexCoop as my advisory set. And obviously I hold tokens for the IndexCoop as well. So it's just great to see two projects that I'm close with teaming up here. Spreek put a great tweet thread out today, basically going through kind of like the dangerous things you can do within crypto. So they start the tweet by saying, an always dangerous thing, entering your seed phrase or equivalently private key, uploading key store, showing QR code from MetaMask into a website, app, or chat. Legitimate sites should never ask for this. If they do, it isn't worth using. Nope. And yeah, I mean, I completely agree with this. Do not ever enter your seed phrase, private key, or anything like that into a website, ever. And it's funny because like with MetaMask, sometimes it'll with MetaMask, if you want to restore an account, you have to enter your seed phrase in. This is also risky because of the fact that if you do this and there's a keylogger on your PC, well, the keylogger is going to get your seed phrase and they're going to drain your wallet. So there's kind of like a trade-off here, and I just like take the kind of stance of you should never do this. And if you have to restore your MetaMask from a backup, I would probably do it on a completely kind of like new install or kind of like new PC. I know that's kind of shitty, but it's just so risky to enter a seed phrase in, or, and it's just, I wouldn't risk it at the end of the day. But anyway, and then Spreek goes on to talk about potentially dangerous things, it's funny because like sending ETH, potentially dangerous, because, I mean, you could send it to the wrong address, right? And then kind of like calling transfer approve on ERC20 token contract or transfer from set approval all on ERC721 could lose that token. This is kind of like what I was talking about, the permissions before. I've spoken about this before. And then, and the rest of the thread goes through generally not dangerous things, and then a bit more information about all of this and how to kind of like help yourself. And there's a few helpful replies in the tweet thread as well. So definitely go check this out. It'll be linked in the YouTube description. And speaking of kind of like dangerous and dodgy things, Zach here put out a great kind of like tweet thread of his tweet threads that he's done, calling out all the bad actors within the crypto space, the shillers, the pump and dumpers, the ones who have basically shilled coins, dumped them on their followers and moved on, and never disclosed it. There's a lot of people that do this, unfortunately. You can see here how many of them there are. There's Scott Malka, Moonrock Capital, Yellow Block, the Yellow Block team, Coltheria, Mooney NFT, Soulstarter, what else is there? Spectre, GBP. I mean, the list goes on here. I'm not going to name them all. There's a few others here. I applaud Zach for calling all this out because apparently someone doxed him and was sending him threats and he was getting like death threats and stuff like that. I mean, this is what's going to happen when you call out scammers at the end of the day. But this is the unfortunate dark side of crypto, is that there are so many of these people that try to scam you and try to pump and dump on you. It's really, really bad. And my humble advice to everyone is you do not follow a trader or an influencer that is shilling you a new coin every day, because they're only shilling it because they want you to buy it so that they can exit into that liquidity. That's what we mean by exit liquidity. And to dumb it down even more, so you get the full kind of implications of what happens here, this is the life cycle of a pump and dumper. They will buy a coin that they've found randomly, cheap, whether that's been through kind of like a pre-sale or an insider deal, or they've bought on the open market. Then they'll start shilling it to their following. Then they'll wait for their following to come in with the volume, come in with their liquidity, pump the price up, and then they'll have sell orders, or they'll just be market selling into that liquidity as it's coming in, and then that inevitably runs out because the token is either kind of like a total shitcoin or just worthless or useless, and then the price comes down, but the original kind of like person who promoted this has already exited. So they've used that liquidity from their following and from the noobs and that don't know any better to as exit liquidity, which is obviously really, really bad. So I applaud Zach for calling this sort of stuff out. I retweet his stuff all the time because I think more people should know about this, but this is the dark side of crypto. So hopefully you guys, are probably wise enough to avoid a lot of this stuff these days, but stay safe out there because you don't want to be exit liquidity. You really don't, because it feels like shit getting dumped on. It really does. I mean, there are things that go down like 90% within a month. That's these kind of things. And if you bought at like the top and then you lose like 90% of your value of what you bought in a month because you didn't sell because you're a newer person to crypto and you just were holding the bag because you're like, oh, I bought into this because I thought it was a great project. This guy that I trust was shilling it. That's not good. Like, it really screws with you mentally, and it can make you depressed, actually, at the end of the day. I've seen people go through this. So stay safe out there, guys. Really, if you want me to kind of like give my opinion on a project, I'm happy to. If you come across something like this, I'm happy to give it on Discord. I will literally give you my honest opinion. I won't sugarcoat it. I'll tell you if I think it's a dumb project or not, but I won't tell you if I think you should buy it or not. I'll never do that. Obviously, I don't give investment advice, but I will try to help you weed through the crap, and I'll never cover the crap on the refuel either. I do my best to curate it, so I'm not covering scams or pump and dumps or anything like that. I'm not sharing them with you guys, but I know that this stuff's rampant on Twitter. So yeah, stay safe out there, everyone. But I think on that note, I'm going to end it for today. So thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all on the AMA tomorrow, or the data pump on Sunday, or I'll catch you next week on the refuel. Thanks, everyone.